This video will explore the experiences of old age and the process of aging. To better understand the experience of old age, I will be examining the lives of my grandparents while connecting their lives to the general experience of aging. This video will cover the dimensions of aging, which include the following changes: biological, psychological, social, emotional, and spiritual. I will also be discussing the overall changes that affect an individual during the aging process. During this video, I will also discuss questions that explore the experience of aging. Before I begin, I will share some background information on my grandparents to help better understand their aging experience. My grandparents' journey to Canada was difficult nonetheless. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from South Sudan in 1987 because they were fleeing from a civil war. My grandparents and their three younger children, 10, 4, and 18 months, escaped their war-torn country of South Sudan and sought refuge in their neighboring country of Ethiopia. It took my grandparents and their three young children 3 weeks to walk to Ethiopia from South Sudan. They walked 8 hours a day and stopped at night for rest. Most often, the conditions were unsafe for their children, and they feared for their lives, but they knew that they had to make this journey in order for survival. Once my grandparents and their children reached the city of Addis Ababa, they were able to stay in the United Nations refugee camps. After 6 months at the refugee camps, my grandparents were able to file resettlement forms, which provided refugees the opportunity to become immigrants only if they were able to read and write in English. Luckily, my grandfather used to be an English teacher, so this came easy to him. My grandfather filed the forms, and after 2 more years, they were able to come to Canada. To this day, my grandfather continues to stress the importance of education because for him, it gave him and his family the opportunity of freedom and a new life. The barriers my grandparents faced as immigrants were challenging. Upon arrival in Canada, my grandparents found it difficult to adjust to the Western world. My grandfather experienced much strain and stress because of the need to provide for his family. My grandfather used to be an English teacher and was heavily involved in politics back in South Sudan. However, he no longer had the luxuries that came with his previous jobs, money. In Canada, he had to quickly find employment and one that paid well, so he became a taxi driver. My grandmother's role differed greatly from my grandfather's. My grandmother was to take care of the home and the children. While she completed her duties as a mother, my grandmother took it upon herself to take English classes in order to adapt to her new environment. While in Canada, my grandparents had to make a new life from nothing. So my grandparents worked very hard in order to ensure that they could give their children a better future. My grandmother worked in a factory 5 days a week while my grandfather worked 80 hours as a taxi driver. While working, my grandparents were able to provide for their children. My grandparents funded my uncle's dreams of becoming a professional basketball player, and they were able to pay for my mother's post-secondary. In 2008, my grandparents were able to buy their first home, which to them was one of their greatest accomplishments because they were able to see their transformation as immigrants. Now, the reason why I shared my grandparents' immigration story is to help further understand their aging process. So the two interconnect because my grandparents' immigration story was able to showcase their resiliency through all the difficulties and barriers and challenges they faced, which are in a way helpful through their aging process because they have built the necessary skills and strengths to combat such changes that are going on in their lives and to help develop them into a new stage into their lives. To give a better understanding of old age, I will answer the question, what is considered old age? Traditionally, old age is considered 65 years old and above. However, because old age is socially constructed, there is no one static definition, meaning old age can differ from individual to individual because of personal beliefs, values, and their unique understanding of the world and their interpretation, which is why we sometimes see older adults reject the title and perceive themselves to be as young. Old age can differ from culture to culture because of values, ideals, and expectations. And lastly, old age differs from country to country because of the unique values and norms set in place. In the Western world, old age is considered to be 65 years and above. Anybody who falls within this spectrum is considered an elderly or an older person. In the Western world, we have 3 categories for the older adults. We have the young old, who fall within the ages of 65 to 74, which would be my grandparents, the old, which include 75 to 84, and the oldest old, which include ages 85 and above. Now that we have a better understanding on old age, I will explore the dimensions to aging, which include biological changes. The biological changes during the process of becoming an older adult are important and critical to acknowledge because of the effects they have on an older person. Biological aging effects are a natural, irreversible occurrence which increase with age. Biological changes may include the following: hair turning gray and or thinning of the hair, hairlines receding, wrinkles setting in, internal fat replacing lean body mass, which can cause weight gain, bone and muscle loss, which can cause weight loss. Lungs may lose the ability to take in air, which can cause for mechanical ventilators, respiratory efficiency declines, functions of cardiovascular and renal kidney symptoms decline, brain cells decline and brain mass. Lastly, vision and hearing may decline. In regards to my grandparents, they have reported that their hair has thinned tremendously. My grandfather's hair is almost all gray, and his hairline has receded. Adapting to their new changes with their hair is something that's very important to them because it's part of their identity and how they portray themselves. So they've had to create and construct a new meaning of beautiful when they look at themselves. My grandfather has wrinkles that sit all around his eyes, along with his forehead. My grandmother has wrinkles that sit around her eyes. Through my grandfather's aging process, he has lost a lot of muscle, and now he is very thin, which is something he has had to adapt to quite quickly because it's part of what makes him him. And having to change his appearance so rapidly has kind of caused some stress on him because he has to accept his new body. My grandparents have also reported that through older age, they have to use their glasses more frequently because sitting at the computer, watching television, and reading and writing is a lot more difficult on their eyes. My grandparents have emphasized that these biological changes must be accepted because it's part of their new identity, and without accepting these changes, they cannot truly live as themselves. While it is difficult to accept biological changes, they may be prevented by not smoking, drinking only in moderation, and getting 8 hours of sleep at night, along with cutting saturated fats and increasing omega-3 fats. My grandparents try to incorporate all of these changes into their lifestyle because they want to have a smooth transition with their aging process. Cognition decline with old age is inevitable. However, the severity of its effects varies among individuals. In my grandparents, they're both at different stages in their cognitive abilities. Cognition decline is not uniform, nor is it uniform across the different cognitive functions of the brain. This can be caused by biological, psychological, health-related, environmental, and lifestyle factors. The cognitive effects to aging are important to discuss because cognition is concerned with the act and process of knowing and perceiving, which make up a big part in a person's world as it creates their understanding and reality. Through the process of aging, older adults may experience learning and memory decline, slower inductive reasoning and or problem solving, diminished spatial orientation, decline in perceptual speed, decreased numeric ability, losses in verbal memory, and lastly, few changes in verbal ability. My grandparents have reported that they have not suffered from much cognition decline because they continue to stimulate their brain. So my grandmother reads the newspaper and my grandfather reads books all the time. They both do puzzles, crosswords, and Sudokus to stimulate their mind and keep them sharp. These activities help them with their memory and their inductive reasoning, along with their problem solving, which helps keep them sharp, which will benefit them later on in the future because they've been continuing to stimulate their brain. My grandparents believe that by engaging in brain games, they can limit and reduce cognitive decline. For my grandmother, she has a great memory. She remembers faces and names quickly and recalls stories from her childhood effortlessly. While my grandfather does have some cognitive struggles. At times, he struggles with his verbal memory. So my grandfather is very fluent in both Arabic and English. While I only speak English, sometimes when we engage in conversation, he switches to Arabic randomly and continues the conversation without realizing I don't understand him at all. My family has noticed this is something that he has picked up recently, and he continues to do this with other family members, and we believe that this is due to his age. However, my grandfather is still very sharp with his spatial orientation. He still plays soccer and drives, and he is very good with math. By examining my grandparents' aging process, it's clear that not every individual experiences all cognitive effects or any at all that come with old age. The psychological effects to old age affect the mind, mental, and emotional state. Psychological effects may include depression. Depression is a mood disorder characterized by the persisting inability to experience pleasure, difficulty in concentrating, disturbance of sleep and appetite, feelings of sadness, guilt, and helplessness persist. So depression may root from many different factors in old age. To begin with, we'll look at isolation, social isolation. Some older people may be single, widowed, live alone, or in a home, so they feel lonely because they don't have that feeling of connection or family or community. Older people may suffer from role strain, so they may no longer participate in the workforce, or they're no longer involved with the community or their family or friends. And because of that, they experience role strain and depression may occur. Stressors from an individual's current life, so having reduced mobility and or chronic pain, is a contributing factor to depression. A drop in socioeconomic status. Those who are older may no longer be working and making as much money as they did before, and they can no longer live the luxuries that they did before. Older adults are exposed to elder abuse and neglect, and with those come hand in hand depression. In my own grandparents' lives, they do not suffer from depression, and they believe it's from what they do to combat those feelings. So my grandparents are very involved in family life. They love to be engaged in their grandchildren's lives as well as their children's lives, because that's what brings them the greatest happiness in their world. My grandparents do not suffer from role strain because they have said they've experienced that during their immigration process, and they have been able to handle those feelings of helplessness and been able to use their inner strengths of resiliency to combat those feelings. My grandparents do not take the stresses in life too seriously that come with old age, such as reduced mobility or chronic pain, and rather embrace those feelings because they're adventuring on a new journey with their old age. My grandparents do not suffer from elder abuse or neglect because they are a part of a family that is very involved with them and loves to care for them. So they don't suffer from depression that may stem from older age. Another effect that comes with psychological aging may be dementia. So dementia is a group of symptoms that affect memory, thinking, social abilities to the point where they interfere with an individual's daily life. Those with dementia may have difficulties with thinking, problem solving, language, and experience changes in mood and behavior. So those who struggle with dementia may actually be in harm's way if they are living alone because they cannot do that themselves adequately. Alzheimer's is another dimension to psychological aging. So Alzheimer's is a progressive disease where the symptoms of dementia worsen. Alzheimer's is an irreversible progressive brain disorder that slowly destroys memory, thinking, skills, and ability to carry out simple tasks. Those with Alzheimer's may experience withdrawal from social activities, troubles with images and spaces, difficulty with words, memory loss, difficulty completing familiar tasks, and lastly, confusion with time and location. So those who experience Alzheimer's may actually inflict harm on themselves if they are alone. So they need people to look after them and care for them. Luckily enough for my grandparents, they do not suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's. This could be because they're still in the younger parts of their aging process. However, my family does not have a history of dementia or Alzheimer's. My great-grandmother died at around 97, and her memory was not affected. She still had very strong social abilities, and she was still able to engage in the social aspects in her life. She had strong problem-solving abilities, and her language never decreased. In fact, my great-grandmother still spoke English and Arabic quite fluently. She didn't experience changes in her mood and or behavior. So this just goes to show how psychological aging is a unique process for every individual, and every individual has a unique experience. For older adults, social lives either grow or decline. My grandparents have reported that their social lives have been growing ever since their aging process because they recognize and acknowledge the importance of family, friends, and community. Because without the three, they can find themselves isolated, and this is where feelings of abandonment, neglect, and hopelessness may spring. My grandparents' relationship with their family is much stronger because they're aware of death coming, and so they want to be close with their family because they know that their time to leave is soon. My grandparents are always with my family for the holidays, so Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter, and they make sure that they never miss out on these opportunities to engage in family events because they see the value of family. My grandparents have even moved closer to my hometown in order to have support from the family, in order to make sure that they're taken care of and that their needs are met, because at the end of the day, they want to make sure that during their aging process, they are living life as comfortably as they can. Religion, faith, and spirituality are all dimensions to aging that may increase or decrease with age. Faith is the confidence and trust in a person, thing, or concept which brings security. Spirituality is a connection to something bigger than ourselves and a search for meaning in life, which can bring purpose. While religion is the belief in or worship of a superhuman controlling power, such as a god or gods, which can provide comfort in the concept of an afterlife. Faith, spirituality, and religion are tested with age because an individual either draws closer to faith, spirituality, and religion because of the security, comfort, and trust it provides, or they are separated from the concepts because they feel as though life has no more to offer but death. My grandparents are influenced by faith, religion, and spirituality because they are Christians. My grandparents have always been involved within the church throughout their whole lives because their personal understanding of God is that He protects His children and places strengths in their hearts to get them through life's struggles, which they have held on to through their aging process. My grandparents believe in an afterlife, heaven, and because of this belief, they aren't afraid of their aging process because they believe that there's something more for them after death. With older age, my grandparents have reported that their relationship with religion, faith, and spirituality has increased because these three elements have been able to guide them through the hardships and challenges and barriers that old age brings. Money is an important dimension to aging to explore because money affects an individual's lifestyle until death. My grandparents have always been hard workers, so they see the value of money because it brings many opportunities to the table. Coming from South Sudan to Canada as immigrants, my grandparents had little to nothing because everything that they had working for was taken away from them. So in Canada, my grandparents worked as hard as they could so their future grandchildren and children would have a better life than they did. My grandparents see the value in investment because the return benefits the family as it generates more income. My grandparents' main goal in life currently is to help fund my degree and my siblings when they go to post-secondary because they value education. For my grandfather, it was the opportunity of freedom. Currently, my grandmother still works because she wants to save as much money as possible before her retirement, and my grandfather still works because he still believes he's young enough to do so, and it provides him comfort to know he can still provide for his family. Health is a crucial dimension to explore of old age because with age, health becomes more complex with a general trend towards declining capacity and increased likelihood of having one or more chronic diseases. Health concerns worth mention of older adults include oral health. Some seniors lose their teeth or suffer from gingivitis. My grandparents have not yet reached a stage in their aging process where they have experienced this, yet are very cautious and worrisome to experience this because they believe their smile makes up a big part of their identity. So to lose that, they'd be losing themselves, but they have to accept this coming forward in the future. Heart disease is a leading cause of death for adults over 65. Those with older age may experience high blood pressure and high cholesterol. To maintain this, my grandparents maintain their stress and are very healthy, so they do not experience high blood pressure or high cholesterol, which can further affect their heart later down the line and cause more diseases. Osteoporosis is common with old age. However, osteoporosis can be prevented by exercising and eating healthy, which is exactly what my grandparents do. They do not struggle from this health effect because they are conscious of keeping up with a healthy diet and lifestyle in order to ensure that their bodies are right throughout their entire aging process. With old age, individuals are more vulnerable to pneumonia. They may have a weaker immune system. Individuals with old age are vulnerable to cancer and prostate cancer. And while cancer cannot be directly stopped, it does help to detect the cancer developing in the earlier stages. While my grandparents have not directly experienced any of the following, they are very conscious of this throughout their aging process because these are things that they must accept in order to move forward with their lives. They cannot be in denial with these effects that do affect people. Otherwise, they may be putting themselves in harm's way by not taking care of their bodies and living a lifestyle which can help them maintain wellness. We can capture old age by defining it as a wealth of knowledge, experience, love, mentorship, and stability that stems from health, wellness, and finances. These have all come through the process of aging because each stage in life provides new obstacles and battles and barriers that an individual has to face. And while they face these barriers and obstacles that life has to offer, they gain new understandings and experiences and perspectives that they can bring onto themselves and those around them. So the gifts of aging are very important to explore because there are many. For my grandparents, they have expressed that wisdom is one that comes with age because of how much they have gone through. So my grandparents, coming from South Sudan to Canada as immigrants, have experienced many, many, many battles, and they have just helped them learn to be resilient and to be strong no matter what life has to offer, because at the end of the day, you must be strong to combat these challenges. My grandparents have also said resiliency comes with age. Your bounce back ability just grows each year because of the things that you go through and the things that you see. Mentorship also comes with aging because of your experience that you have gotten through aging and living a life full of different memories and meeting different people. You're able to kind of guide people through situations that you have may encountered, or just give advice from what you've seen through your own eyes. With age becomes inspiration. My grandparents have said that this is one of the main gifts that they value because they have been able to see how people see them as inspirations, because they've come from nothing and created something from their life. With aging also comes kindness and support and giving others direction because of what they have experienced. So how does life change as you move from young to old? Individuals see the value of life because they're closer to death, and important things such as family and happiness come about. People cherish memories as they age because these are the things that they have left to hold on to. My grandparents express that they never say no to things because they express that life is short and they never know what can happen. So spending as much time with family and friends in the community is important because these are all the things that they have left.